Great song to bring us into a start of a brand new message series today. And welcome to New Hope. If this is your first time, we are glad you've joined us. And if you're just always here, glad to have you back. And Marty's giving me the sign, like if you can kind of squeeze together, if you got some places, act like you like each other. And if you don't, just for my sake this morning, all right? I'd appreciate that. I see a couple of one seats. And I know, I'm the kind of person that when I get to a place, I like to get an aisle seat because I got long legs and I like to kind of stick them out. And when I get an aisle seat, I don't want anybody to tell me to move over because I got here early. I like to be able to keep my aisle seat. So if you have an aisle seat, you can stay where you're at. Everybody else has to move, but please don't everybody move away from the center so the center and everybody has to go through. That's not what we want this morning. But hey, some of you are aware that my wife Lori was in a pretty horrific accident last Sabbath afternoon leaving church. Good news, very thankful news is only a broken hand and some really amazing seatbelt marks and a couple of cuts and stuff. Car's totaled, but easy to replace a car, not so easy to replace a wife. So thank you all. I know a lot of you have been praying for her. Some of you have been generous enough to bring over food. We've been joking that our refrigerator hasn't been this full and since the boys were living with us, and typically didn't stay that full that long when they were living with us. So thank you again for being so gracious and watching out. I'm not sure it's a statement about thinking I couldn't cook very well or what, but again, thank you for helping out there. Hey, have you ever had that opportunity in life where, you get in your car in the morning and you got some big project. Maybe it's a big project at school that's due that day or a big test. Maybe it's something you've been working on at the office or you're going to have this conversation and you're just so thinking about it that you remember getting in your car in the morning and the next thing you remember is pulling into the parking lot. Anybody else ever had that wonderful experience? And you can't remember anything between? And there were turns, there were stoplights, all that kind of stuff. It's amazing how we have that ability sort of to check out at times. And I've seen it happens at all ages. I've been in a conversation, I've had it happen to me, and I've had it happen to other parents. You're standing there and you're having a conversation, and all of a sudden, for a guy, you feel your pants leg get pulled, and somebody's saying, "Mommy, mommy, 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 mommy," and finally you stop and you say, "I'm daddy." And they go, because they're just so tuned in to what's kind of going on. Maybe you've been, either maybe playing a video game or you're watching some sports event and you know that somebody has walked into the room because there's been sort of a shadow. And apparently there's been a conversation because they say thanks and they've left the room. And you have no idea what it's about. Anybody else with me on this morning? We have such an amazing ability as human beings to sort of check out. And I think it's partly how we're wired. I mean, it's good that we can do some things on automatic pilot. I'm glad every morning that I don't have to think about every little thing. That I get up and I go into the bathroom. I'll skip some parts, but I brush my teeth, you take a shower, and you do something that, and I'm guessing, if you start shaving on one side of your body, that's the side you always do. You ever put on your socks and you start with the wrong sock? And if it's weird, right? So I'm glad that God has given us the ability to sort of check out, from life and just kind of, autopilot some things. But here's the question we're starting with today, and we're going to go through the next 6 weeks, or actually 7 weeks on Sabbath. But I want to propose today a journey for all of us to take. That for the next 60 days, you will stop once an hour, and let me give a little definition of that, once every waking hour. Just stop and recognize God's presence. That's it. That's going to be the challenge I'll give you at the end of our message today. That'll be the challenge we'll talk about for the next few weeks. Something really simple, right? I mean, how hard is it just for a stop once every hour and go, "Okay, God, okay," and then back to your work. But that's what I'm going to ask you to do. And I'll tell you a little more as we go through, but that's where we're at. But here's the reason why. I ran across the definition of ungodly. And when we hear the word ungodly, all of us have sort of lots of definitions of, that's an ungodly act, or that's a terrible thought. But here's the definition I ran into a while back. Living one's everyday life with little or no thought of God. Just let that sink in for a second. Living your everyday life with little or no thought of God. And with that definition, if we can just agree, accept my definition whether you like it, let's just say that's what I'm working from. With that definition, how ungodly is your normal everyday life? And I don't say that to make you feel bad, because that's not the goal of this. It's not to make you feel bad. It's just for all of us to recognize that we tend to go through life missing lots of things. You know, life gets busy, life gets crazy. You know, the phone's ringing, I need to get this. Somebody expects me to answer this email. I'm supposed to answer this letter, and all the stuff's kind of going on, and it's just like, and I get paid to work. I can't be, stopping and thinking about God. We have all this sort of stuff, but how often, if we're honest, how often does God enter in to the moments of your life? How much of my life do I live without regard for God? How much of my life do I kind of live on sort of autopilot? Yeah, I know He's there. Yeah, I know I'm a follower. I'm one of His. But do we sort of live life sort of accepting that reality that He has said without thinking about that reality of what He says? And I want to start off today by making you feel not guilty, but maybe to have you just stop and say, man, maybe my life isn't as connected to God, not as it should be, but as much as I want it to be. Because I want you to be there so I can answer it by saying, we want to do this experience together, to give us all the chance to let God break in to the regular parts of our life, to give Him regard. And I'm going to tell you right up front, here's what you're going to experience. Because I've done this twice before with my previous church. We did it a couple different times. Well, I want to talk to you again about how some things did a little beep. I had a little stopwatch that I got, cheap thing that I could set every hour to beep. And it would beep off every hour. And I can guarantee you that it will beep at the most inopportune times. And it's supposed to. Because if we typically wait to the times that are best for us to connect with God, do you know how often that happens? But if we let Him break intentionally into those times that's inappropriate because it just doesn't fit, I'm working on this, I'm talking to somebody, I'm thinking about this, but we begin to live our lives not just believing the truth that God is always here with us, but to begin to live our lives as it really is the truth, and to recognize that truth. See, the human mind is incredible in its ability to tune out and to go on autopilot. It happens in your life, it happens in my life. And the danger always is, as it goes on to autopilot, that we'll miss God. That we'll miss what He has just in that moment. And also miss out on the things that He wants to do in our lives. So before we get into it this morning, I want to invite you to bow your heads for a second, and let's all pray together, all right? God, life is filled with moments. So many moments. We have our busy moments. We have our quiet moments. We have our crazy moments. We have our mad moments and our happy moments and our sad moments. But every one of those moments, we know that You're there. But sometimes it's easy to forget because we get focused on all those other things. And this morning, I just pray that You'd be with me to help engage us all in this experience of living more intentional lives, more aware lives, more honoring of You lives. Because that's really why we're here today. And whether we're here just sort of checking out this whole idea of even faith and of belief and of Christianity, or whether we're checking out what the Adventist version of that is, or whether we've been kind of not quite connected and trying to reconnect, or whether we've been going along, or whether we feel like we are really engaged, all of us know that we're here today in some way to experience You in this moment. To feel like we haven't just gone to church, but that we've come to You. So I just pray You use this time this morning to do what You need to do in these moments that we've come to give to you in your name. Amen. This 60-60 experiment is about actually living out the one thing that is most important to God. And here's what that one thing is. Living our lives in connection and response to Him. That's it. That's how simple this is. I'm not going to say, stop during your day and pray this prayer. Stop in your day and ask God to show you this or to do that for you. It's just going to be simply about stopping once every hour and just recognizing God. And then going on about your life. The next hour, when the beep goes off, or the buzz, or the ding, or whatever little, your little note that you see, is to stop and say, in this moment, I'm just recognizing God. And there's a couple of practical reasons I don't want you to pray. One is if you're driving down the road and the beep goes off, I don't want you closing your eyes, folding your hands, any of that stuff. And secondly, prayer is not simply about closing our eyes. It is about kind of asking, and it's kind of about, saying stuff to God and ask and make this response. At these moments, I simply want us to stop and just recognize, God, you're here. And what does here mean? What do you want to do at this moment? And again, if you're going down the road at 55, because that's the speed limit, you keep going down the road at 55. It's not a stop and to go in a different direction. It's to stop and make a recognition. Because it really is that God's goal for all of our lives is that we would live our lives in connection and response to Him, right? I mean, that's what He wants. That we're connected, and then that as He guides us, that we'll respond to that guiding. Let's talk about, I'm just talking about some practical ways to stay connected. If you have your outlines there in your bulletins, you can follow along if you like. The first key to staying connected is to remember that it is all about the moment. Your life has been filled with moments. Moments of wonder, moments of sadness, moments of fear, moments of joy. And it's all been about the moments. And our experience of God is really about the moments. As I have the privilege to talk to people on their journey with God, it is amazing about how they can look back and think of specific moments that something happened that sort of turned the course of their life, changed the direction. And the amazing thing about those moments is how oftentimes the other people that are involved in those moments are clueless to those moments. You ever had that experience? Somebody says, I remember when you said this, and you go, I don't remember saying that, But they remember it because whatever was in that moment, it was the moment that made the connection. Jesus would put this idea of the moment this way. Over in John chapter 15, one of the last things we have recorded in the Bible, sort of the last big discussions he has with his closest group of followers before he goes and ends up being crucified and dies. And he says these words to them. He says, listen, just as a branch cannot produce fruit unless it stays joined to the vine, you cannot produce fruit unless you stay joined to me. And I don't know about you, so often when I've heard this passage preached on, the focus is on the fruit. It's about you producing fruit. When Jesus is simply saying a regular agricultural truth. You have a branch. If you break the branch off and throw it over there, it can't produce because it's cut off from the nutrients. But a branch's job is to produce fruit. That's what it does. And so if it stays connected, it produces fruit naturally. It's about the connection that Jesus... In fact, if you go back and read John chapter 15, you will see, I think there's at least 5 times, if not more, that he'll use this term, stay connected. Be joined to me, abide in me is how some versions go. It's this idea over and over, and he keeps saying it. And the focus for Jesus is on the abiding part, not on the fruitfulness part. And he goes on, listen, I am the vine, and you're the branches. If you stay joined to me, and I stay joined to you, then you'll produce lots of fruit. That's the end result, but it's not about the fruit as much as it is the staying connected, the joining part. Then he says this amazing thing, but you cannot do anything without me. Apart from me is how some versions, but you can't do anything without me. And if you're not a strong follower of Jesus, or you're not even sure about this whole Jesus thing, you're sitting there thinking out right now one specific thing. Come on, Mike. I can do lots of things without Jesus. And you're right. You can drive your car. You can brush your teeth. You can be successful in a job. You can love your kids. You can do lots of things without Jesus, and that's not the context. Too often this is put in that kind of context. That's not the context. Jesus is simply saying that this idea of producing the kind of fruit, that to be what God wants you to be, you can't do it apart from Him. It's not about all these other stuff. You can do lots of things apart from Him, but it's about the connection. Apart from God, you cannot really grow into the person that God intends you to be. And I think I come here every week believing the reason you're here is because you intend to be what God wants you to be. That's why you come to a place like this. You have that intent when you come, and that's your goal when you come. And Jesus' point is, you can't do it apart from me. Here's my question. Is it possible that our coming up short in consistently imitating Jesus is found in our apartness from Him? Are we kind of one of those crazy, branches that, gets pulled off and then we put it back on, and we pulled off and pull back on, and it may not happen literally, but it happens just in our experience. Is maybe the things that sometimes don't work out so well in your life and in my life, and some of the things we wrestle with, based more on the fact of our apartness, of living lives not staying connected, not in conscious connection with Him. Jesus goes on. Stay joined to me, and let my teachings become part of you. Then you can pray for whatever you want, and your prayer will be answered. This incredible statement. It's the fact that if Jesus and us are connected, that His teachings have become part of our lives. That whatever we ask would be in line with what He has already said He wants to do, and so He'll be gladly to answer those prayers. But it's the staying connected, because He says, listen, when you become fruitful disciples of mine, my Father will be honored. And for Jesus, it is always about honoring the Father. It's never about Him. It's always about, is this bringing honor to the Father? The stuff that happens in your life, bringing honor to the Father. And again, this is not to say that we're doing this perfectly, but it's just asking the question, in the moments that make up all the moments of your life, are more of the moments honoring God than dishonoring God. Because it really is about the moments. And you take a good moment here, and you add it to a good moment over there, and you add it to another moment over here, and pretty soon you have a good day. And you have a couple of good days, you're having a pretty good week, and you have enough good weeks, you're having a pretty good life, and that's how it works for all of us. It's about those moments that makes, but it's even more than the moments, and here's the second point. Well, not the second point, but this part of the point. It's just a reminder again when Jesus makes this statement, that the fruit He talks about that brings honor to God, that fruit is the result, not the cause of the connection. It isn't that we got fruit and thus we're connected to God. It's that we're connected to God and the fruit just happens. Might be a nice little bumper sticker. Fruit happens, as opposed to... I think there's another one out there. I don't remember what it's saying. All right, second point. Second point of staying connected is that it's about the journey. It is about those moments, but more than just about the moments, it's about all those moments because they make up a journey. And I love the fact that over and over in the Bible, God speaks to these different people, inspires these different people to write down the words that life is a journey. It is not about a destination. It's not about being a finished product. It's about working on that product. It's about molding that product. It's about adding the pieces to that product. That it's this lifelong thing. It's not about the ups and downs. It's about the whole trend of life. Paul will put it this way over in Philippians chapter 3. He says, listen, I have not yet reached my goal, and I'm not perfect. Not there yet. Kind of like to be, but I'm not. Haven't reached it. And I'm not perfect. And that ought to be good news for all of us, right? How many perfect people we have today? In reality, if you're not perfect, you're imperfect, right? Now, you may be sitting thinking, well, I'm not as imperfect as the guy sitting next to me, Don't do that. Because in God's eyes, it doesn't matter. It's either or. It's not perfect or a little bit imperfect. We're imperfect. And that isn't this idea that that's the bad thing. That's a recognition of who we are. And Paul, this great theologian, this guy who lays out so much important stuff, says, listen, I haven't reached my goal. And I'm not perfect. But Christ has taken hold of me. See, it isn't about my perfection. It isn't about how I'm doing and reaching it. It's the fact that Jesus has taken hold of me. That he's got a hold of me. And he'll get me where I need to be because he's got a hold of me. I haven't got there yet. I'm not perfect. But he's got a hold of me. So I keep running. And I keep struggling to take hold of the prize. Because he's got a hold of me. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep struggling. Listen, friends, my friends, I don't feel that I've already arrived. Not there, but I forget what is behind. And how many of us here today need to forget what's behind? You know? For some of us, it's like we go through life like a U-Haul trailer. You know, we just keep pulling our stuff around, you know? And we keep having to go down and get a bigger trailer because life keeps happening. You know, it gets bigger. But how often do we keep getting pulled back to our past or allowing that to happen? Paul says, listen, Jesus got a hold of me. And if you're a follower of Jesus, Jesus has a hold of you. One of the best things to do is to forget your past. Because everyone, all of us, everyone sitting in this room today has stuff in their past that you wish you could forget, that you wish you were past. He says, let it go. Because God is in the restoration business. He's in the redeeming business. It's not to say, you know, I wasn't there, but it's to say, I was there, but I'm not there any longer, and it's all what God's doing. So I forget the past, and I struggle. And I'm going to use that term, I struggle for what's ahead. I struggle. I keep working at this. This is the hard stuff. But it's always done in the context of, but Jesus, he's got a hold of me. And we're on this journey. And I keep struggling so that I can win the prize being called to heaven. This is the prize that God offers because of what Christ Jesus has done. Heaven's the promise because of what Jesus has done. Not because of my struggle, not because I'm working this all out. It's simply because of what he's done. Because grace is not opposed to effort. It's just opposed to earning. Nothing we bring to the table is going to earn anything. But there is effort involved. There's struggles involved. But it's always done from recognizing, you know what? Jesus has a hold of me and he has a hold of you. And it's about the journey. The staying connected, again, is about the moment, but it's also about the journey. It's where we've been, but more importantly, where we're going at the moment and the end result of being out there. Third way to stay connected, it's about intentionally living in God's presence. I'm amazed how often we do stuff unintentionally. But how when we're intentional about stuff, how much difference it makes in our lives. How many of you have ever unintentionally said something that was stupid? Put your hands up. Thank you, right? And we think back and we think, oh, man, I didn't mean to say that. It was unintentional. It was unintentional, and it was. But have you ever noticed when you go someplace and you say, I got to be on my best behavior? I need to be intentional about this, that it helps you in those situations, not say those things unintentionally. Those moments you say them intentionally, that's a whole other topic for another day, all right? But it's about living intentionally in God's presence. And that's what this whole 60-60 experiment is going to be about. Psalm 139, I love this psalm. It captures the reality of living in God's presence. Here's what it says. Listen, Lord, you have examined me, and you know me. You see it all. You know everything I do. From far away, you understand all my thoughts. Nothing in your life happens that surprises God. You know, he isn't sitting up in heaven going, oh, I can't believe that happened. You know, that little Home Alone look, you know, none of that ever happens to God. Sometimes he probably smiles. Sometimes he snickers. Sometimes I imagine a tear maybe comes to his eyes when it happens. But he knows everything we do, and he understands all of our thoughts. Not only does he understand our thoughts, you see me whether I'm working or resting, and you know all my actions. There is nothing in your life that is hidden from God. And that can be a scary thought, but it ought to be an encouraging thought. Because God wants us to live authentic, real lives in front of him. Because there's nothing you can pull over God's eyes. You can hide stuff from us. You can come to church, get all dressed up, put a smile on your face, say the words I've told you before and I hate, but some of you really like, so that's good for you. I'm glad. Happy Sabbath. Happy Sabbath. Good. You can come and you can go and think, I got out of there with nobody asking me about this. Everything's good. But is that really the way you want to live? Because it's not the way God designed you to live. Because God knows everything about you. Past, present, and amazingly, the future. He knows those unintentional words that come out. He knows those intentional words that come out. He knows those thoughts that stay up here. And the thoughts you have up here that you think nobody knows about. Everything happens. Even before I speak, you already know what I will say. How many wish you had that ability? Right? But God already knows. Even all the words that I'm saying right now, he already knows before I say it, so there's no way to get in front of him. No matter how fast I speak, I can't get in front of him, right? Or how slow and I think I'm going to say this before. Even before I speak, you already know what I will say. You are all around me, on every side. You protect me with your power. Because it's not just about his presence. Oh, he's here watching over. It's about his presence and him watching over us. Not just in a looking and writing everything down kind of mode, but looking over. They care for us. And the psalm says this amazing statement. Where could I get away from your presence? He goes through this long list of, I could go here, but that's not going to happen. Go there, you're still going to be there. There is no way you can get away from God's presence. And some of you are here this morning because you have recognized you can't keep running from God because everywhere you go, he's there. And when you learn that, you say, why do I keep running? Because I'm working hard at this and he keeps being there, I mean, I've talked to so many people, They've had some of the most deeply profound discussions about God when they're either drunk or they're high. I'm not going to ask you to raise, I'm going to ask you to raise your hands. How many have been there? Okay. And some of us kind of snicker because maybe we haven't, but it is amazing. It's a reminder again that where can I get away from your presence? And the answer is nowhere. And I've been a part of some of that. I had to raise my hand too. There's been times that you go, but it's about God's presence in the moment. It's a reminder that everywhere God is always there, and he's always there reaching out to us. There's a passage I put on your outline. It's not up here, from Acts. It's this great thing that Paul is talking through, and he's saying, talking about God, but this last line basically says this, that God does all these things in our lives for nations and for how he set this whole world up for one very specific and simple purpose. That at some point in our lives, every person would reach out towards God. And in the process of reaching out, that we would find him, because as Acts says there, he isn't very far away. But God is always there. In my mind, it's the picture back of when I was teaching my boys how to ride a bicycle without training wheels. And if you've had that wonderful opportunity, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, not so much for fathers, but mothers typically, hold on to them, don't let that happen, But you get the wheels off and you get the back of the bike, and then back in the day when they had the banana seats, it was easier. Now they got those little BMX things and there's no place to grab it, or fenders, but you get them going, and you're going along and you're running with them, and all of a sudden you got to kind of let go and you kind of keep going so you're right there just in case. And of course the kids always are like, hey, look at me, I'm riding, they look back, but you were riding there. It's that picture of God is always just right there, encouraging us, moving us along, letting go when he needs to let go, but capturing us when he needs to capture us. So here's the focus. Next 60 days, I want to challenge you simply to stay focused. Don't worry about the fruit, because the fruit will happen. Because Jesus said it would. If you stay connected to me, if you stay part of me, things will happen. It's when we disconnect, it's that apartness that leads to the challenge. So here's some tools to help you stay connected. On the bottom of your outline, I put some tips. First of all, you need a device to hourly remind you to stay connected. How many of you have cell phones? At the bottom of your outline, there's some of the apps you can go get to put on there. Some of them cost a little money, some don't. Some people like different stuff. I have an iPhone. I got the Chime, which is free. It simply does what I ask it to do here. I can set whatever time, top of the hour, 10 minutes after the hour, 13 minutes after the hour, the 37th minute of every hour, and it goes bing. That's all. I don't have to do anything on my phone. It just goes bing. And it goes quiet for another hour, and then bing. So you need to have a device, something that will help you. Now, if you work in an office where you can't have your phone on, there's actually, I put at the bottom there, there's a computer program that you can get, does the same thing, chimes, every hour. Sometimes some of the phones and computers have it built in. So if that doesn't work for you, also you can get visual reminders to stay connected. Put a little note. Something that says, beep or bing or, 60, something that, so when you see it, you just kind of go, oh, stop, I'm going to try to connect with God in this moment. And the third tool you need to help you stay connected, I can't provide that. I don't have it at the bottom of the outline because it's something only you can do. But here's the thing. When the beep beeps, first of all, don't pray. Prayer is not bad, but that's not what this is designed about. This is not for you to stop and think, oh, I got to pray again. That's not the experience I want you to have. What I want you to have is beep. God is breaking into my day. I'm gonna make this break out of my normal life just to make sure that God and me are connected in this moment. And so it can be simply say, God, I know you're here. It could be, okay, God, what do you want to do right at this moment? It could simply be, that I stop and say, okay, and you go on. It's some way to break in. Secondly, simply engage with God. That's all I'm asking you to do. Not to pray, not to do it, to simply engage with God, however that engagement looks like for you, okay? And allow that interruption to be your invitation to include God in your day. Because that's what it is. It's an interruption in your day, but it's also an invitation as you get interrupted to include God in that moment and in that journey. Why? And see what happens. I believe, based on my own experience, based on, again, going through twice with my previous church through this, that when we allow God to enter into our lives in a regular, intentional way, that God will show up in ways we don't expect. And I cannot tell you what those ways are because for all of us, it's going to be different. But I believe, and again, what you're going to find, I need to tell you up front, be honest. You're going to get frustrated because it doesn't work out perfectly. There's going to be times when that thing goes beep and you're in the middle of something you tell yourself, I can't stop and disengage, or I forgot my phone today, or I didn't turn it on, or it is not, again, about perfectly following this. It's about simply engaging, okay? So don't feel bad about this. This is going to be the hardest, simplest thing you've ever done. I mean, how hard it is to put something on your phone that goes beep every hour, And you can say, actually, some of this, the one I got, the Chime one, it won't beep at night when I want to be sleeping, okay? Because I don't want you waking up because that stupid phone went off and Mike made me I don't want that. Set your times. But my personal appeal to you is to give God some space in your life for the next 60 days. 16 times a day, I think it's like 960 or 70 times over the next 60 days. And just in that moment, invite God to enter into your life and see what happens. With that in mind, I invite you to take out the connection card that Jason talked about earlier. And we've just kind of started this a few weeks back. Want everybody to fill one out, even if you don't want to put your name on it. Put the thing in, so it encourages somebody sitting next to you to put it in, okay? But it's a great way to communicate information to pastoral staff, to give us information, whatever sort of was going on in life. But there's a part in the back that talks about, prayers, and we want to have some more information that helps us pray on our Tuesday morning staff meetings. But there's a section called Next Steps. And here's 3 possible next steps that maybe you can take today. Maybe this is the step for you. Maybe it isn't. It's okay. But I would just like to know what's going on. So maybe your next day today is simply to admit that you've been ungodly, that you sort of have lived life disconnected to God, not really giving God much time and space in life. And that's a fair thing to say. And if it's true for you, I'd encourage you to take that next step to admit that I've been ungodly in that definition. Maybe your next step today is to commit to staying connected to God every 60 minutes for the next 60 days. If you don't mark that box, you're going to be very tired of this in just a couple of weeks, because that's what we're going to be doing as a group, right? And if you're willing to do that and you want some weekly encouragement from me, put your email down there and I'll send you out once a week just a little thought. Not a long thing, just kind of a thought to kind of talk you through this. Lastly, maybe the next step or a possible next step could be to be more intentional about seeking God's presence in my life this week. So I hope you make some kind of next step today. In a little bit, some folks will come down and collect what we call tithes and offering, and it's a chance to give back and support what happens here. And I just want to thank you all again for giving. Through the support that comes from all of those that consider New Hope your home, we see lives being changed. We had a chance to celebrate one this morning, and helping to make that connection and going forward. We've seen relationships getting restored. We've seen faith renewed, and because we have the funds to do lots of amazing things. And if you're visiting with us today, we don't expect you to put any money in there unless you feel like you'd like to. That's really for those that consider New Hope their home. But before that offering, before we pick up those cards, there's a second offering we do before that. It's for our kids, and Ed Garcia is going to come up and kind of walk you through about, I'm going to invite the kids up, Ed, and then you can kind of explain to everybody. So boys and girls, if you want to come help Mr. Garcia out, I invite you to come up front. You're going to go around and collect some money for a very special thing for us.